Once you've wrapped up this podcast, how about trying a very British cult?
What happens if the person you trust with your future isn't what you think they are?
I did feel the whole time he was watching me.
Yeti?
I saw a footprint, and that really gave me goosebumps.
Or people who knew me?
Emmy, I remember every secret, every lie. I'm the only one who knows the truth.
Discover more of our biggest podcasts from 2023. Listen on BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast, your whistle-stop guide through all the big talking points in the national game. It's Tuesday, the 12th of December. I'm Jane Lewis, and coming up today...
The reaction of Switzerland is very weak, but defensive point of view and tactical point of view, they're extremely well organised.
We'll look ahead to the Euro 2024 tournament and get the inside track on Scotland's opponent Switzerland from former Celtic and Spurs star Ramon Vega. Sticking with the national team...
Bailey into the area on the right-hand side, cuts it right across, McGinn turns and scores! Brilliant from Villa!
We'll take a look at some of the Scots making the headlines in the English Premier League. And can Aberdeen hang on to this man?
Miovski's in this time, he shoots and he scores!
This is the Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sport Scotland.
Let's first of all welcome Jordan Campbell of The Athletic to the podcast. Jordan, thank you very much for joining us. How's life treating you?
Yeah, it's good, thanks. I'm out here in Eindhoven for Arsenal, so it's the third time in 18 months I've been out here, so I don't think I'll need to come back on holiday anytime soon. But yeah, no, life's good, thanks.
Yeah, you can't get enough of Eindhoven, can you? You obviously are now based down south. English football can't be as exciting as Scottish football, surely?
No, definitely not. I don't know if I should be saying that, but yeah, secretly, yeah, it's never as... full of drama or full of colour. So yeah, I always enjoy still watching Scottish football more than English football. But yeah, some things money can't buy.
Well said. Lots to come from Jordan shortly, and we'll also be hearing from Ramon Vega as well. But first of all, let's quickly run through the Scottish football news. Lots of headlines coming out of the Aberdeen AGM last night. The club say they remain positive about relocating to a new beachfront stadium, and they do not expect to lose top scorer Bojan Miovski during the January transfer window. It's a big night in the Champions League, kicking off the final round of group fixtures across the European competitions this week. Scott McTominay's Manchester United have a crucial home game against Bayern Munich, while Kieran Tierney's Real Sociedad face Inter in Milan to decide who tops Group D. A fast-track tribunal will convene today to hear Rangers' appeal against Jose Cifuentes' red card in Saturday's 3-1 win over Dundee. As things stand, the Ecuadorian would be suspended for Sunday's Viaplay Cup final. And Hearts fans who eat, breathe and sleep football could be in for a treat, as the club have revealed details of what's claimed to be the UK's only hotel based within a football stadium and run by the club. 25-bedroom venue Tynecastle Park is expected to open early next year. Well, Jordan, if you could sleep in a football stadium overnight, what one would it be?
Well, I mean, I've probably only really spent a full week in one of them before, and that was Livingston. When David Martindale let us behind the curtain for a week last season when they were playing Rangers. So I've seen the setup he's got there with the protein shakes and the gym and stuff. So I'm thinking that he's made it into like a sort of mini mansion. So I'll probably go there. Might not be the most glamorous one, but I'll go with that one.
I don't know. Glamour all the way in Livingston. You know how it is. Well, moving on, it was announced yesterday that the Scotland's men's team will face the Netherlands and Northern Ireland in March. That's as part of preparations for Euro 2024. And as we continue to look ahead to the finals next summer, we've been trying to find out just a bit more about our opponents at the tournament. We've already heard from Derek Ray. He was talking all things Germany last week. Today, it's time to put Switzerland in the spotlight. And who better to tell us all about them than the former Celtic, Spurs and Switzerland defender Ramon Vega. Ramon, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Not bad, not bad.
I was just doing a little bit of research on you, so reminding myself of your links with Scottish football, and I couldn't believe it's 23 years ago since you were here. That's ridiculous.
Are you making me old now, or what's going on
I
here?
remember. Well, I remember you being here as well. So I mean, if you're old, I'm old. So we're in it together. We're in it together.
It was brilliant. It was brilliant. Celtic for me was always and still today very much in my heart. I think it was short, sweet, but very, very, very intense. You can't win the treble in such an intense period. Let's call it that. People playing at Celtic for years and maybe never get a treble. I had the opportunity, the honour to play for such a big club in Scotland and winning the treble at the time was historic with Martin O'Neill. Great lads we had with Henry Glasson, Chris Sutton, and so it was brilliant. And Glasgow was welcoming me very much. I loved it up there in Scotland. A lot of Scottish people, and they're always in my heart, without a doubt.
Well, we'll maybe touch on Celtic a little bit later on, but let's get your take on Switzerland. Of course, you're our resident Swiss expert. What do you make of the draw, first of all, Ramon?
Well, I remember the '96 I played. We played against Scotland as well. That time
That's
was
right,
Alan McCoist, the striker. Well, we got hammered, I think, at Villa Park at the time for the Scots at the time. But yeah, I think it's a different time, different teams as well. Switzerland, without a doubt, it's been over 10 years or plus, really qualifying for big tournaments, doing well in big tournaments as well for such a small country like Switzerland. And they've got some great players in there. You know, we're talking about Saka, or ex-Arsenal now in Germany as a captain, is leading the team well, and there's some quality, talented play. At the same time, I think Scotland's been doing quite well as well the last few years, you know. I think the group itself is a tricky one. We are talking to host Germany, we're talking obviously Hungary, it's extremely strong as well. I got maybe a little bit the divide house because my wife is Hungarian, so can you imagine? So when Switzerland, Hungary plays, 2 rooms, 2 TVs. It's going to be an exciting tournament without the group stages. And I think it's one of the stronger groups as well. At the same time, I think whoever prevails through that group stage might potentially go all the way as well, I would say. You know, I think it's, if you're talking about the host Germany, they're not going to want to embarrass themselves. Saying so, they're having a very bad spell within the last year too, uncertainty, but they're playing at home. And Germany plays at home, they're a tournament team. They've always been very strong in tournaments. But at the same time, if you beat them and you go all the way, you've got a very good opportunity.
Tell us about Switzerland and what we can expect from them. What kind of team are they?
Well, first of all, Switzerland has individual kind of good quality talents, you know. But that doesn't mean they're depending on just on the individuals. Switzerland was always a kind of very well-organized, tactically well-awareness. They really educate themselves what their opponent's weaknesses are and strength, and they go for that. And the one thing what Switzerland always makes hard against any big team, even in the World Cup, I'm not sure if you saw the World Cup against France. France was really struggling, you know, at the time against Switzerland. It's because they're well organized on the pitch, you know. Now, how long you can actually hold that, that's where the breaking point of Switzerland is as well, the weaknesses. You know, you can hold it as much as you can, but if you don't score or potentially you're getting one in, then that's where the weaknesses of Switzerland is. The reaction of Switzerland is very weak, but defensive point of view and tactical point of view, they're extremely well organised.
Ramon, just before we let you leave us, obviously we can't let you go without talking about Celtic. They play Feyenoord in the Champions League tomorrow night. Now, whatever happens, they're going to finish bottom of Group E. What have you made of this campaign? It's been a little bit disappointing, hasn't it?
Well, very much, to be honest with you. But at the same time, Scottish football is, I would say, not similar to the Swiss league as such, but the economics point of view are very, very similar. You know, it's not the Premier League, the incomes are not TV rights, etc. So the Champions League is very much very big source of incomes coming into it. So for Celtic, first of all, of course, to qualify at the Champions League is very important, you know. But at the same time, you know, if you go to the Champions League, you are going against some very, very potentially big teams with more resources behind that, you know. And this is one of maybe the handicap Celtic has, because Celtic should have way much more because it's a big club. For me, it's one of the biggest clubs, I think, in the world in terms of supporter point of view and represents Scotland massively, you know. But yeah, from the campaign point of view, I think from football terms point of view, I think it was a little bit disappointed. They could have done much better because there are teams in the group you could actually handle better and may even beat them as well, So I think it's very disappointing from that point of view because they showed already in the past in the Champions League Celtic done very well, But this year I think most likely should focus on the league and go next year into it again.
Ramon, thank you very much for joining us on the Scottish Football Podcast. Lovely to hear your dulcet tones again. Hopefully we'll catch up soon. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Say hello to Scotland.
Remember, we always want to hear from you. So if you've got any comments or questions, then you can email us. Please do so. Get them into scottishfootball@bbc.co.uk. Alan in Lossiemouth has done exactly that. He wants to know, are we beginning to see the start of claims, not just for squad places, but starting places for next summer's Euros from our English Premier League stars? And does Callum McGregor need to start worrying about starting at the Euros? Alan goes on to make the point that McTominay, McGinn and Christie have all featured in analysis recently on Match of the Day after quality performances, and that Billy Gilmore and Lewis Ferguson are also doing really well at Brighton and Bologna. What do you think to those claims, Jordan? Callum McGregor, should he be worried?
I know there's been a lot of talk in recent weeks about, is McGregor influencing things enough for Celtic, and build up. They've been struggling a bit and they've tried to move him a bit further forward by bringing in Iwata, but to me, Callum McGregor's on his day the best player in Scotland and has been probably for a number of years now. So I don't think his place will be under threat because him and Gilmore bring a level of control to the midfield that just the other guys don't. McGinn, McTominay, Ferguson are all different types of midfielders to me. They're not someone who can give Scotland a foothold in the game and really dictate it. So I think he's maybe dipped slightly, but I think that's probably a product of Celtic looking like they've taken a step back under Rodgers this season. I don't think Steve Clarke will be be pinning it on McGregor, so I would be surprised if he doesn't start that opening game.
You were at some big games at the weekend, weren't you? Arsenal away to Aston Villa, and obviously John McGinn, well, we always like to keep an eye on how he's doing, but at the minute he is absolutely playing out of his skin, isn't he?
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, Unai Emery after the game said that he literally had two players repeatedly looking over at him, basically begging to be taken off because they're just shattered. Because I mean, this is Villa's first time in Europe and also in a title race, so some of the players were absolutely out on their knees. But the one guy who definitely wasn't was John McGinn, who I mean, the last week he's probably wasted about 5 minutes time just by using his bum to shield the ball against Man City and Arsenal. And these top athletes just don't know how to overcome it. So it's always funny to watch in the last 10 minutes how he wastes time. But I mean, playing that new position on the left of midfield in the four, it's a bit of a different position. He was talking about it, that he's taking a bit of time to get used to because he's used to being in the thick of the action, bombing up and down, whereas this is a bit more reserved off the ball. He's not running about everywhere, but I think you've seen that sort of preserving his energy has really allowed him to get up and support the attackers, just in the way he does with Scotland. And I mean, it was an unbelievable finish for that goal. He said he had a chance a couple of weeks ago where the ball came for the exact same cutback and he tried to lay it off, and he said, if you ever get in that position again, swivel and shoot. And I mean, I think Ben White thought that he had time to get close to him, but I mean, the speed at which McGinn took it with his right foot and spun and took it with his left foot was brilliant. And I mean, I think that's his 4 goals for the season, which is his top tally in the Premier League already. So yeah, he's absolutely flying at the moment.
Yeah, it was an unbelievable finish, wasn't it? It's brilliant to see him doing so well down there. You were also Old Trafford for Manchester United against Bournemouth. Mixed fortunes for our Scots involved, McTominay and Christie in that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think just starting off with Christie on a positive note, I mean, that could have easily been 5 or 6-0 for Bournemouth, which, I mean, is a sad indictment of where Man United are at. They've lost 3-0 3 times at home this season. That was the 4th time they've conceded 3 at home in a game. So, I mean, the fact that it's not even a surprise that Bournemouth can go there and take on a team like Man United shows where Scott McTominay's team are at. But I think Christie's really found a nice role, just slightly deeper than he usually plays. And I think he's been able to really buy into the way that Areola likes to press. So I think it really suits Christie because we all know how much energy he's got. But it's been interesting to see him play a midfield role rather than a sort of shadow striker. But I mean, McTominay, I mean, we've been talking about this for months about do Man United know how to get the best out of McTominay? Can they use him in a way that's similar to Steve Clarke? And I think the last couple of months we've seen that Ten Hag has actually he's looked at what's worked for Scotland and tried to incorporate that in his team by letting them bomb on, letting them attack for deep. But I think you saw at the weekend that still when he's facing his own goal, the game's not as natural for him. He gave the ball away 2 or 3 times where just lacked awareness and almost looked a little bit hesitant. But I mean, he's been on a great goal scoring run, and I think that sometimes he becomes a lightning rod, I think, for Man United's problems. It's, obviously I think homegrown players are always an easy target, but the fact that he's not one of these superstars who throws a tantrum and, he always puts in the graft even if he's not playing well, I think because he's not the most fashionable of players, that sometimes he can be the easy scapegoat. But I've seen people saying, he's been playing well individually, but he makes the team a lot worse. Well, watching that Bournemouth game, I could see a lot bigger problems than Scott McTominay, and the main one was that whenever they lose the ball, the body language of some of those Man United players is an absolute shambles. So, yeah, I don't think McTominay deserves some of the criticism he gets at times.
It's going well for those players. It's not going terribly well for Scott McKenna, though, a defender obviously at Nottingham Forest, but not getting an ounce of action, completely out of the picture. What's going on down there, and how quickly does he need to get out of that club?
Forest looking real disarray just now. They're on a plummeting down the table. I mean, he's not the only defender that's been bombed out. Joe Worrell, obviously, who was on loan at Rangers a few years ago, he's also been out, and boyhood Forest fan, was captain for a while, got them back up. It's been surprising to watch that Steve Cooper, obviously such a cherished manager, for getting what is a big club back into the big time, but he changed 7 players at the weekend, changed the shape. They brought in 40 odd players in the last 2 seasons. The owner obviously is quite a character, and I think his influence at the club probably seeps into the culture. So yeah, it's a difficult one for McKenna, because I think you saw him, Clarke played him in the left of a back 4, and I thought he actually looked quite good. I thought he was one of those players for Scotland, one of the few that looks comfortable in a back 4 because of his pace. But I think he has to get a move in January, I think, if he wants to be going to the Euros, because he's got a place, but it's easy to lose.
You're listening to the Scottish Football Podcast.
As I mentioned in the news roundup, it was the Aberdeen AGM last night. Their chief executive, Alan Burrows, says the club don't expect to sell star striker Bojan Miovski, who continues to be linked with a move to Celtic, among other clubs. How good a player do you think he is, Jordan? And do you think Aberdeen can hold on to him?
I think Miovski is a really good striker. I guess the question, can Aberdeen hold on to him? I'm sure they can. It's just whether it makes financial sense to do so. They held on to Duke in the summer. His profile's probably dipped slightly since then. So I know they'll probably wait to the summer with Duke. But Miovski, I think, you've seen against Rangers the other week what capabilities he's got. He's tall, he's a good target man. He can run in behind, and he is a clinical finisher. And we all know that's what clubs pay top dollar for. So Miovski's the sort of player that Aberdeen should be scouting. They've done really well to identify him. They've done well to bring him in, play a system that suits him. But, I think Scottish teams have got to capitalise on these players. I don't think it should be, we're scared of selling players. That should be the business model. That should fund the next Miovski. So, I don't think they should be feared of losing these players. But if he gets a winner in the League Cup final, then I'm pretty sure they'll be able to get a slightly higher transfer fee. But it would be a big miss. There's no doubt about that. He's obviously come in and been one of the best strikers in the league. And I guess the question would be, would Rangers or Celtic look at him? In recent years, it seemed like there's a bit of snobbery from the old firm towards top players in the league. You've seen Kevin Nisbet go down south. We're talking about John McGinn. Celtic never paid the money that Hibs were demanding. So, I mean, practically the full Scottish national team has come through the league. People can say, it's not a good reflection on the Scottish Premiership that all these players are playing in the Premier League. But Hickey came through, Tierney came through, Porteous came through, Lyndon Dykes came through. All of these boys played in the Premiership and got the experience there. So, I think it would be naive of Rangers and Celtic not to look at players like Miovski and Shankland, who is getting a little bit older, but would they come in and score 20 goals for them? Probably.
Well, that's all we've got time for. My thanks to Jordan Campbell and Ramon Vega, who joined us earlier. And thank you very much for listening as well. Amy Canavan and Tom English will be back with you tomorrow. Keep your comments and questions coming in. Just email us, scottishfootball@bbc.co.uk. And remember, if you haven't already done so, just search for us wherever you get your usual podcasts and hit subscribe. It is a big week for the 3 Scottish clubs in Europe. BBC Scotland has it all covered for you on Sportsound and across the website as well. And of course, we'll reflect on them here on the podcast. For me, though, goodbye.
Just a quick reminder, the Behind the Goals podcast is available every Tuesday with me, Rachel Corsey, and me, Leanne Crichton. It's your one-stop shop for our take on everything that's happening in the world of football. Just head to BBC Sounds or wherever you get your podcasts and search for Behind the Goals.